Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today. Ladies and gents, boys and girls, it is my extreme pleasure to finally be able to announce the release of our first ever mobile app, Drillbook. Drillbook has been in development for probably the past 5 or 6 months. Myself and a massively talented member of the team, Adam, have been putting this together. Drillbook is built to be the home of training ideas for drill grounds across the fire and rescue service all over the world. The goal of the app is to deliver a community-built library of content built by firefighters for firefighters. If you jump onto the App Store, if you look in the notes and the links below the podcast, you'll find a way to get onto Drillbook, and you'll find it on social media as well. This is built for new officers, instructors, training reference holders, firefighters in development, people going for application, people going for interview. You will find an area in there specifically with all of the instant debriefs. So if you're a big fan of the instant debriefs that we do on the podcast, you can go in there specifically and look at one area where they all kept. There's knots and lines demos on there. There's radio messages where you can build your own messages and get into that habit of what you're looking for and how it should look. There's quick reference guides, there's interview questions, tactics, training, guidance, and you have the ability as well to put in all of your fantastic training ideas. What's that great drill you've done on station? What's that one you saw when you were covering somewhere else? Bang that into the app and share it with the whole world. We don't want to see all of these great ideas and these great training tips die when these people retire. So jump in there, have a look, input your own training ideas, and be part of a community-built library of content built by firefighters for firefighters all over the world. Go check it out. Matt, welcome to the podcast, mate. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. It's great to finally connect.
Mate, it's great to finally connect. So for people that won't be familiar, we've tried to get this conversation together. God, I don't know. It's probably been a couple of months. You are obviously operational first responder. You've got a missus, business. You're you're big competitive athlete. You've got 1,000,001 demands. So trying to get stuff like this together, and also we're in different time zones. So for people that are unfamiliar with you, just give us a quick whistle stop tour of where you're coming from today and sort of how we got connected, I suppose.
Yeah, my name's Matt Chan. I'm from Denver, Colorado. I've been living here for about 22 years. So now the better part of my life. I'm a 45-year-old guy, and I'd say I got connected with you because of the mix between my competitive fitness background and my firefighting background. So I'll start with the firefighting. I started volunteering at a small agency in the mountains when I moved to Colorado. Found that it was a lot better of a job fit for me than my IT profession was. And that drew me into searching for a professional firefighting career, which I found in the north suburbs of Denver. And I got hired professionally in 2007 and remained in a firefighter position until roughly January of 2012, when I took a leave of absence for some pursuits that were related to CrossFit competition and also working for the CrossFit seminar staff. It was a lucrative opportunity. It was something I was really passionate about at the moment. And overall, I was really happy with my decision. And unfortunately, I let that go for almost 5 years. So I had to kind of re-enter the fire service 5 years later with all lapsed certs, and I had to start over from scratch. But in 2017, I was rehired at the same department. And now I've been there for 6 years, for a total of 11 as a North Metro firefighter.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Gore-Tex Professional Fabrics. Now, we all know the working environment of a firefighter is filled with challenges. We face serious risks on the job, such as heat exhaustion, burns, physical and mental stress, and we frequently come into contact with high levels of toxic chemicals. Now, I have been wearing Gore-Tex for nearly 2 decades on the front line, working in hostile environments, tackling challenging incidents from firefighting to water incidents and in urban search and rescue environments. Gore-Tex have a well-earned reputation for protecting professionals in the fire and emergency services through their family of highly innovative, waterproof, breathable moisture barriers that exceeds global performance standards and are trusted worldwide. Gore-Tex, going further together. Mate, so connecting those dots, looking backwards. So give people understanding if we can, because it operates a little bit different all over the world. I always say to people, firefighters themselves are kind of exactly the same, pretty much the mindset, the ethos, and all that sort of stuff. But getting into the fire departments across the world is very
Mm.
different in terms of having to get in your own quals and how the on-call versus volunteer
Oh,
versus whole time, full time, all the different variations. So you had an appetite for it. You've been doing the IT thing, professional, competent,
yeah,
and all that sort of jazz. Why the
yep,
sidestep into a profession that's much more kind of old school knuckle dragging,
yeah.
getting into it kind of job?
I come from a blue collar family, and my dad was a, he's retired now, but he was a 35-year mechanic. My mom was a school teacher, and I was working that white collar professional job as an IT professional, and really wasn't getting a lot of fulfillment out of it, and not a lot of job satisfaction, and it really kind of worked its fingers into my overall happiness. And I
How
came
old would you
across
have been then?
firefight.
Sorry. How old were you when you decided to make a shift?
Oh man, I think I must have been like I started volunteering probably when I was like 25, and shortly thereafter I was like, man, this job, this path is pretty cool. And
That's a
I
really
became a
pivotal age,
resident.
though. That's like the fork in the road where people can go balls deep into their
Mm,
9 to 5 profession, where they're like, I can see the lucrative opportunities. So and so is going to retire. There's a new company opening up here. IT is the fucking sector to be in because everything's exploding. But like you say, some
yes.
people still have that feeling like they're sitting on a nail all the time, where they're like, I'm not really very comfortable in this, but it doesn't hurt so much that I don't want to do it. And I think that fork there, especially around 25, you've kind of gathered your chips together from your education and stuff, and you're like, this is what I'm going to go into the world with. I'm going to be an IT professional. So then
Yep.
to draw a line into that and go, no, I'm going to be a fucking beginner in this other thing. I think that takes a lot of fucking balls. I think some people have to take a pay cut quite often as well.
Yeah.
But then I think, what would the Matt Chan version be if he was now 37, 38, 40, and he'd done 17 years in the
Yeah.
IT sector? Would it be the
Well,
same
you
guy
bring
sitting before me? Probably not.
no, definitely not. In fact, I'd probably be pretty unhappy. I think at a certain point in my life, I realized that sitting behind a desk was not for me. And that happened as I was still an IT professional. The stress of the job was high. The pay was high, which was great, but really the fulfillment and job satisfaction and therefore life satisfaction was very low.
Hmm.
And that was for me. There's a lot of IT professionals that absolutely love what they do.
There is a large
But
percentage, but I think it's that tipping point between like out of 5 days of the week. Where's the tipping point from? I mean, because even in this job, you won't feel fulfilled every day. Where's the tipping
mm,
point where you feel like, fuck this? How many days in a row do you have to feel like I'm not fulfilled before people have that? I don't know.
yeah, I agree with you. And frankly, once I even was a paid professional firefighter, I did not. I took on a lot. I started working as a seminar staff member, or basically an educator for CrossFit, in 2008, and I opened a gym in 2008, and basically I was spread pretty thin. And what happened was, something had to give, and my frustration level at the fire department was very high, and that wasn't fulfilling me. So that's what made that decision to leave for 5 years kind of easy for me, to pursue things like competitive CrossFit and the seminar staff training. So
That's a big
I think
gamble,
really you
though.
got to
It's a big
yeah, you got
gamble.
to listen to your heart, though. I think one of the things I've noticed in the fire service is that a lot of people, they get that really, you know, the job that they've been after, that really, you know, the light at the end of the tunnel. That's what they are shooting for. And once they have it, they just stick with it forever, even if they're not happy. I don't think it's a bad thing nowadays to leave a department to find one that has a better fit for you. And
Absolutely
loyalty
agree, mate. Yeah.
is almost valued over finding the right culture that you fit in with. So I
I
work
think
with a
you've got
lot
to
of
find
people.
what works for you personally, but I'm the same. Like every 2 years, our team to change. So our version of department and or organization, different watch, different
Mhm.
station, different discipline, whether it's water, rope, technical rescue, training, fire
Yes.
investigation, whatever it might be. But I
Yep.
also appreciate that can be very jarring for people. They feel like they never become a subject matter expert in a certain area. But also, like when you were saying about moving on to CrossFit and stuff, have you ever read a book? There's a book called The Second Mountain. People are probably bored to fucking death of me talking about it, but it has so many correlations.
No,
It's
I'm gonna
about
have
like
to note that one.
getting into the thing that you thought you wanted. Like this mountain is in front of you, call it the fire department, call it whatever, and you're like, I think I want to do a physical job that challenges me and causes me to be resourceful, and I get a real fulfillment out of it. And you think it's the fire department. And I'm not saying for a lot of people it's not, but sometimes when you first hit that first peak, a little bit like for anybody, and I know out where you are, you do a lot of mountaineering, you do a lot of stuff out in the sticks. You hit that first one, then you can actually see several other peaks. And it's not to
Oh
say they're
yeah.
better or worse than what you're doing, but some people stay on that first mountain, whereas your pursuit can then kind of evolve into actually, and I'm kind of putting words in your mouth, so correct me if I'm wrong, but like I enjoy things that are physically challenging. I can see a metric of success with, and that I can also get a great amount of fulfillment in it. And that, if that's your why, then it can be CrossFit. Then maybe it's the paramedics. Then maybe it's the military. Then maybe it's running my own gym. There's lots of other
Yep.
mountains still to climb, but you've also got to have that humility, even if it's just moving around departments, to say, I know I'm now the best person on this station or freaking whatever, but I've got all my tickets. Now I'm going to descend to this one so I can be a beginner again in that next one. But that aspect of choosing to be the eternal student, you went on and did your studies with the CrossFit training and stuff like that, and then started your own fucking gym. That's scary as shit again.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. And it's these scary things that you face in life, whether that's recreational, whether that's career, whether that's relationship. That when you surmount those things, they are the most fulfilling. When you look at something and you're very intimidated, and I'll give you an example. Right now, in the States and in the department that I work for, uh, if you have the qualifications for either the chauffeur or engineer position or the qualifications for the officer position in a crew, you can act out of class. That's what we call it, or act up.
Yeah.
And I just finished that process after kind of like a year of working on it, got all the qualifications, did my rides, and it's frightening every single time I sit in the front seat because now I'm in charge of, the six guys that I work with, and I'm still learning myself. I'm still learning what it takes to be a good firefighter on every call. And there's absolutely moments where I'm like, oh crap, do I belong up here?
Yeah.
And what's great is you come out on the other side after a call that, is a first time call or something that was frightening for you. And you come out on the other side of it and you're just like, yeah, that feels good. I like that. Starting to like this.
No, man, and that makes me think so much about you starting the gym as well, because you might not feel as though you're an expert in a certain topic. Like you'll go out to a job, you go out to a call that you've not been to before, but realizing that you've also got a team of six competent professionals sat with you or sat behind you. It's the same when you're stepping into business. It's scary and you're not a subject matter expert in that area. But if you can accumulate good people that have that subject matter knowledge, and especially working around people in the CrossFit sector, you'll have done exactly that. You actually don't have to
Yeah.
have all the answers. And I always think that's a differentiation for new leaders because they think they have to have all the answers, whereas really you just need to be good at steering the ship, asking better questions, recognizing the skill sets around you.
Yeah, man. That's but at the same time, the responsibility falls on you. And
Yeah,
that's true. That's true of shit going on in your personal life too. Like, these
100%.
yeah, these people that, things aren't going right and they take a victim role as opposed to taking ownership for their own actions or inactions. It's the same thing. Like the buck stops at you. And whether I'm, in charge of a crew for, the 2 days that I go to work, or whether I didn't do the training to complete some event that I signed up for or that I decided to do, the buck stops at me.
Yeah.
And there's something to that too, that it makes you feel good that it's like, that responsibility is on me and I can fulfill that responsibility.
You can drag lots more things inside your sphere of control and stuff like that because that
Yes.
personal accountability, especially in things like CrossFit, where it's a singular pursuit and you've got to become
Yeah.
that such flexible individual with so many different skill sets underneath you. When did your kind of journey with CrossFit come to? Or where did it first start? Because people that are unfamiliar, 2012 when you were one of the top two finishers. You got second place behind Rich
Yeah,
Froning, which is fucking colossal. People unfortunately will know, not unfortunately, but they'll know the name Rich Froning. You know, they'll have seen the CrossFit Games on Netflix and all that sort of jazz. And I've been
mm,
obviously stalking you and seeing all your sort of shit, but that is a very, very, very difficult position to get to. The fucking
yeah,
CrossFit Games is no joke. There's no, there's a reason they call these people the fittest people on earth. Take us back to
mm,
when you first got into CrossFit and then kind of those stages where you started to think, fucking hell, actually, I could be quite good at this. And I'm doing regionals and this, because that must
sure.
have just like really, really gathered speed fast.
But, I learned of CrossFit in my first 6 months in the fire service in 2007. And it was because, I did the very typical back and bis, chest and tris, abs after every workout and some cardio here and there. And I was really good at all of those things. I wouldn't say I was great at any of them, but I was really good at all of them. I grew up swimming. So I had a very established kind of aerobic capacity, and I also like to weight train. So I had those elements. But what happened was, as soon as I donned a PPE and SCBA and then was tasked with doing something difficult on the fire ground, man, I suffered. And it was that combination of weightlifting and cardio at the same time that really taxed me to the max, and that I found my weak spots. And a guy I worked with had said, from what I understand, CrossFit addresses that very thing where you're basically doing cardio with weights. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I'll take a look at it. And looked at the CrossFit.com website, and saw some things that I never saw before and never heard of. And this is 2007.
Yeah.
So
Very much in its
this
infancy
is
back then.
very much in its infancy. And also, when you look at it now, it looks very different from it did back then. The weights are way different. The skill levels are way different. But the first workout I saw was one called Angie, which is 100 pull-ups, 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and 100 squats. We look at that now in the modern day and age and say, oh, okay, yeah, no, that seems pretty reasonable. But back then, like 100 pull-ups in a workout, like the goal was 8 to 12 for hypertrophy.
Yeah.
And now it's like you'd throw 150 pull-ups in a workout and nobody balks an eye. But I looked at that, I was
Pull-ups
like,
thing
all
is
right, so
fucking just mind blowing for me because I cannot master kipping. I say I cannot pull it back into that personal accountability. I have just not put fucking time into it. I've torn
yeah.
rotator cuffs. I've torn my pec off doing way too much fucking bro dead
Well,
bro benching
honestly, it
and all that
sounds
sort
like
of shit. Yeah, and
maybe
I was
you
just like,
shouldn't kip too much.
well, that's what scares the hell out of me though. But I feel like, and it's something I want to ask you about, like all of the checks my body has written when I was younger, because I took
Mm,
everything under the sun. I was competitive strongman for a bit, fucking steroids, growth hormone. Unfortunately, I went far down that rabbit hole. So I
hmm.
worry. And like I snapped my patella tendon last year, even after I'd stopped doing everything 10 years ago. So I still feel like my body is, paying for things that I did all those years ago. And it just scares the fuck
Right.
out of me. But I'm still only in my early 30s. So I'm trying to put back in some of those foundations, but it's like walking across hollow planks, and I'm a bit worried that I'm going to go through one. Do you know what I mean? So I can do pretty
How
much
old are you?
everything else in a CrossFit workout, but some of the big jarring gymnastic movements like that, just scares the fuck out of me.
So how old are you?
I'm 33, and that's why I say it's a
33.
podcast
Okay.
because I just fucking look so much older from the abuse I've
No,
given
no,
my
no,
body.
no. That's not what I was implying. I just, as I've aged, I definitely I feel similar to how you feel, where it's like, I'm definitely careful about what I do.
Hmm.
Because you're right. You're more prone to injury as you start to age, and right around that 32 to 35 is kind of when it started for me, and it's just only gotten worse. And that's either hormonal or maybe what we expect of our bodies. But
Do you think there is a
either
window
way,
of time that you can like bang and clang for? Is there like, if we moved it
yes,
along a spectrum, is there like a 10 or 15-year block where it's like, if you do start at 18, then you can only really do it hard till then. And then I feel like, you see on the Germans train where they do this, they almost do a physical preparedness thing before they go into any weightlifting, powerlifting thing. And like for the first few years of training, they just do calisthenics, they just do body weight work.
well,
And, they're doing pistol
the
squats.
Chinese and the Russians do the same thing.
And that's where I feel like in the Western world we're shit. Like I remember, or I see it today. Young lads coming in the gym and they're bench pressing, squatting, trying to do all this before they can even do 10 pull-ups or 50 press-ups. And I'm like, we're
right,
not building that. Sorry to go down this rabbit hole, but like we don't build that foundation in the same way.
right. Yep. No, agreed. And actually, that kind of even takes it circle back to what you asked is, I was lucky enough to start CrossFit when the weights were light, when there was a lot more workouts that were programmed that were body weight or, what would be considered traditional cardiorespiratory endurance or
Hmm.
cardio exercises like running, rowing, biking. There's a lot more of that back then than there is now. And there wasn't always the focus on high intensity that there is now either. So I think what we see now as CrossFit is very different from when I started. I coming back to what we were talking about. I never seen a workout that had 100 pull-ups before you do any push-ups or sit-ups, and I'm just like, man, how like what are they expecting you to do this in just a
Fucking
day? Is
buy-in,
it?
yeah.
Yeah. So I tried that workout and it took me 45 minutes. And, later on in my career, I was able to do it in like 12 minutes. And it's a
Jesus.
testament to the program, because what happens is like, as I was progressing, I feel like you said, because I was doing a lot of calisthenics based exercises, I was building not only muscular strength, but also like tendon and ligament strength. And that's important to when you start loading your frame with that barbell or those dumbbells or whatever.
Mhm.
And, hopefully that establishes a base level of fitness that you can rely upon for a long duration of time.
Mhm.
And luckily enough, that's kind of how my journey progressed was, I couldn't back squat a lot of weight. I couldn't deadlift a lot of weight, but nobody expected you to back then.
Did you
Now
not
there's
have to
all these
recalibrate
expectations.
your ego a little bit though, because you were doing the bro splits before that, and there was more
Not
bodybuilder style
really,
training?
not not really, because I had never done any of these big compound movements. So,
Okay.
this is we're talking like, from I started exercising with weights probably in like 1992, and where we're talking about is 2007. So I was only like, 15 years into uh weightlifting, and I had only done machine-based exercises
Really?
or things like the bench press. And I'd never done a deadlift. I'd never done a back squat. I'd never done a front squat, certainly never done a clean or a snatch. And all of those things were new to me. So what that meant was my journey was starting at scratch and building up slowly.
How
And
old were you
there
then
was
sorry?
no,
How old would you have been?
uh, I think it was 27 or 28 when I started CrossFit.
That's such a nice
And
age. I feel like you've got that maturity in your ligaments, in your tendons. They're not still so immature when you're 18, 19, and people start building all this superficial muscle and it becomes stronger than the tendon or the ligament, like me. And then you fucking snap stuff.
yeah, well, I mean, it's not true for everybody though. Genetics do play a role, but you're right. So, I mean, after I kind of established, an understanding of CrossFit for about a year, um, believe it or not, in 2008, I signed up for the CrossFit Games. That literally means I paid $150 and I traveled to Santa Cruz, California, and I went to the CrossFit Games. That was the qualification.
Wow.
$150.
Jesus,
Um,
imagine that. People wish it was like that these days, just
oh
the
yeah.
levels that people go through these days. It doesn't make it any easier or harder, but yeah, it's crazy to think that it was like that once.
Yeah, and it was very interesting back then too, so like guys that you would see in the videos of, doing a lot of these workouts that, nobody had ever seen stuff like this before.
Hmm.
They were at that CrossFit Games. They were at the 2008 CrossFit Games, and they're, names like James Fitzgerald, AFT, his name's Brett Marshall,
Okay.
um, saw Josh Everett, who was just already a legend.
Josh Everett,
Uh,
fucking absolute goat
yep,
of the sport. Jesus, wow.
yep.
That
Chris
must have been surreal.
Spieler, Jason Khalipa made his appearance the same year I
Jason
did at the.
Khalipa, I've got his book as well. Have you got a book?
I don't. No, no,
Oh
no.
mate, come on, it's got to be in the works, man. There's a lot of
Yeah,
notoriety.
I'm
There's a
still
million
writing it.
stories.
Still writing it.
Honestly, mate, because some of the stuff we're going to talk about today, like fucking hell, Jesus, to hear that in audio version. Because what was Jason's? As many reps as possible. Is that Jason Cleaver's?
As many reps as possible. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, pretty good. Because again,
Great
he's gone
guy.
down a similar route with yourself in terms of business challenges and stuff like that to differing levels of challenge and success. And I know he had his daughter was very sick for a long time as well, wasn't she?
That's right. Yep.
Crazy stuff.
Yeah. So that was the 2008 CrossFit Games, and basically for the next, what would it be, 4 years, I continued to go to the CrossFit Games as a firefighter and tried to balance those two things. 2009, it got much more competitive. There was a qualification competition. 2010, they began with sectionals, then regionals, then the CrossFit Games. 2011 was the first open, and then you had to do regionals and then the CrossFit Games. So it just got harder and harder. And as the field got bigger and bigger, I mean, I think in 2011, there was over 175,000 people in the open. The qualification became much more difficult. And
Mm.
right around that 2011 year, it became a professional sport and not necessarily an amateur sport. People were training using CrossFit based movements or techniques that are really limited to just the CrossFit world, like the butterfly kipping pull up,
Mhm.
a different style of rope climbs, GHD sit ups for time, all these things that were exercises previously, but not done for time.
Mm.
Well, now you're seeing it in the CrossFit world where fitness is being measured by time, weight, and distance. So,
That is a very weird shift for people because we've effectively turned circuit training, functional training, into a competitive timed sport. And maybe we'll go into that a little bit later around some of the concerns, challenges, the lovers, the haters, the people that worry about it. But take us to 2012, where you had decided that it's all or nothing. You're really going to have to go for it. And also, what did like your partner think of that? Because it's a big gamble.
yeah, that's a great point. Well, you've got this great job, right? Firefighting, and you got good benefits, good pay. And like you said earlier, when I left the IT world, I took a $20,000 pay cut to be a firefighter. And
Oh.
over 5 years, I worked back up to what I was making previously.
Mm.
So leaving that security blanket of benefits, pension, um,
Also
salary,
sick
all
leave
of
and
that
everything.
stuff.
You injure yourself and you're still kind of looked after a little bit for a certain period of time. Whereas to push all those chips into, I'm going to put my bet on Matt Chan, I'm going to go all in on myself, which is big. And especially a
Yeah.
lot of people struggle with that sort of self belief, that self confidence.
Well, and it took time too. It took time because, I wasn't going to take the risk of not having insurance leaving the fire station. So we had to become a profitable business at the gym that I owned so that we could pay for not only my family's insurance, but also all of our employees' insurance. So, we had to kind of make some decisions and we decided, that 300 member mark at our gym was going to be the number that we start paying our employees' salary and giving them benefits. And that included myself and my wife, Cherie. So once that happened, we kind of had the needs met for what it would take to leave the fire service
Mm.
and pursue not only the seminar staff full time, but also competitive CrossFit full time for myself. And it I became at that time in January of 2012, I became a legitimate professional athlete. It's what I did every day. It's what you see all of these CrossFit athletes doing now, where they're training 4 hours a day, they're prioritizing nutrition and sleep and recovery. That became what I ate, slept, and dreamed about. And my family suffered for that. My career probably suffered for that a little bit, but it was what I saw as an opportunity to leave my mark on something that was very important to me. And that was competitive CrossFit as well as just the CrossFit methodology. And I
So
pushed it. I pushed it hard.
just take me there for a second because, like, so many people, and I've got a million questions there, but I'll try and keep it brief. Is like, so professional career as a firefighter, what were the big gear changes in terms of like things that you weren't able to do, things that you weren't able to facilitate? So yeah, we've got the 4 hours a day training, but what changed in terms of nutrition, in terms of sleep, in terms of, when you finally cut the final strings and go, I am full time this, what changes? How does Matt's day look from the
Yeah.
day in the life of the fire service, what you could and couldn't get in? Now I'm full time this, here's my rigidity, here's my sort of blueprint for the day.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, first of all, in the previous years, like 2010, 2011, especially, I was trying to train for the competitive sport of CrossFit while working a full-time job at the fire station where we work 56 hours per week,
Mm-hmm.
which is more than the average, white collar professional 40-hour a week job. And basically what would happen was, I work in a busy agency and The 3 days that I go to work, we work a 48-96. So I work 2 days on and then I have 4 days off. So
Yeah.
that means I generally work 3 days a week. Uh, Training on those days was not really possible. I was doing upkeep and maybe some restorative work, but not what I would consider training.
Mm.
And that was getting in the way of my potential. And in 2011, I actually went from finishing fourth in 2010 to 10th in 2011. And I felt like I took a step back. So I
Yeah.
really wanted to see that move forward. And what that took was committing myself full time, 7 days a week to that lifestyle that I was describing earlier, where it was just eat, sleep, and breathe training.
Mm.
And I could not recover after while at work and then the day after to really try to even really train more than 3 days a week.
Really?
So once I switched over, things just got put on fast forward. My body composition got better, my skill level got better as a CrossFitter, my capacity from aerobic work to heavy 1 rep max stuff, everything got better, and that was the year that I ended up taking second place in the CrossFit Games.
How did volume look like? Because you're saying, training every day, 4 hours a day. That's the thing so I kind of use exercise as a mental crutch. I'm a recovered addict, and I know if I don't give my mind something to focus on like that, then I'll end up doing something stupid, hurting myself, hurting my profession, just hurting my drivers in life. And I kind of use that
Mm-hmm.
as like a handrail to stop me falling off stuff in the day. So I use my training. I kind of need to train every day to keep that up. But I feel as though historically I've done lots of overtraining and done damage through that. So when it looks like CrossFit in terms of volume and terms of variation, what would a standard week look like for you at the tip of sort of that competitive time, 2012?
Okay, yeah. So 2012, I think I was 34, 35 years old. So, all of these competitive CrossFitters that you see now at the top of the game in the individual open format, most of these people, I will say probably 95% plus, are under the age of 30. There's a
Yeah.
few that are right there at the age of 30. Cole Sager, I think, is one of those guys that I'm thinking of that's right there. There's a
Mm.
few others that are right there. But for the most part, most of these people are younger people. And what they have that we do not, I'm speaking collectively,
Yeah, go on.
is we don't have optimized hormones anymore. And
Yeah.
mine are likely far worse off than yours are currently. And that's everything
Doubtful,
from
but go on. We'll go there in a
everything
minute,
from
but go on.
everything from growth hormone to testosterone secretion and other hormones as well, so that you can recover faster
Mhm.
if you're younger.
Mhm.
And the more you train, the more you throw your hormones out of whack. So at one point in time, I was 35 years old. I'm training 3 to 4 hours per day, 5 to 6 days per week. And my testosterone level was right around 230 total, which is incredibly low.
Mm. So
And
you measuring that? How often you
it
getting blood work? Sorry,
I do every 6 months,
every 6 months.
because it's
Okay.
something that I know I need to keep a track of, because when my sleep goes down, my my testosterone goes down. When my
How
training
do
goes
you
up,
best
my
measure
testosterone
that?
goes
Just
down.
for people that I know there's a couple of websites, but like I don't do mine anymore, and I feel like I need to get back into it because I'm getting a little bit older,
Yes.
and I'm not sure when I need to start supplementing my testosterone because I think I've done a lot of damage to my receptors when I was a lot younger, and we'll go there in a
Sure.
minute. But like, where do you get yours done? What's the best way to do it? Because I know a lot of athletes do it.
Well, luckily, I work for a fire department that we do an annual physical that includes testosterone.
No
Um,
way. Oh,
yeah, yearly. Yep. We
we didn't
do
do any of
a
that.
great. Yeah, we follow what's called NFPA 1582, which is basically yearly physicals that include blood work and
That's great.
cancer screening. Yep. So I get it done once through that, and then the second time I do through my own primary care physician.
Hmm.
And if he's not willing to do testosterone, oftentimes I'll pay for it. Or for people who don't have access to insurance or a primary care, using the service, what's it called? Um, oh, it's a blood work company, Inside
Yeah.
Tracker. Um,
Yeah.
Inside Tracker is I don't know if it's available out of the US.
Don't think
I
it
know
is
it isn't.
available. We're still so fucking archaic with stuff in the UK, and I think because also NHS is free here, which is very beneficial. But it sounds better than it is because actually, if you want things that people might consider non-essential work, like they'd look at me and go, oh, "You're
Like
a healthy
this.
male. There's no reason for you to get your blood work done." They wouldn't do it. So it's kind of
Yeah.
weird. Maybe I need to ask some more questions of people UK side, but I need
Well, I'm
starting.
sure this is a pay out of pocket thing. So like
Yeah.
the one that I've done in the past is their highest level one. It measures over 50 different blood markers. And what's cool about Inside Tracker is it actually gives you information about how to improve your out of range blood markers
Okay.
through either food, diet, or supplementation,
Hmm.
or sleep changes. And I saw basically once I saw my hormone levels be that low, Inside Tracker recommended that I reduce my training volume. And I did. And right away, it went up 100 points within 6 months. So
Was there a
to
fear in doing
me,
that though? Because there's so
oh,
many
yes.
disciplines you need to practice. It's like, what am I going to take off the plate?
Well, here's the trick. Here's the trick. I got better at distributing training smartly rather than just trying to do everything that I can every day.
Just throwing the fucking
And
kitchen sink at it.
exactly. And I think, as a young person, somebody that's in their 20s, you can get away with that for a long period of time because you're just throbbing with testosterone.
Yeah.
You've got the recovery of a rabbit, it's just not an issue. But as you start to age, you need to be smarter about, hey, what does my body feel like today? Is today the day to, push the weightlifting, or is today a good day to do either restorative work or maybe body weight and cardio work only?
Hmm. What does this restorative work do? Because you've mentioned it a few times, and that might be a little bit foreign to some people, like because you used to do it on shift as well. What does an active recovery or restorative day look like?
To me, it looks like zone two work. So, if you're measuring heart rate, generally that's basically at or below your aerobic threshold. So that's where you tip over from being almost primarily fat oxidation for your metabolism to fat and carbs.
Hmm.
And what you could use as kind of a marker generically is there's a quick, easy equation where you take 180 minus your age, and that can give you a good idea of where your aerobic threshold is.
Hmm.
And you basically keep your your heart rate lower than that throughout the entire session. So
Hmm.
you may be able to generate some volume as far as like whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's air squats, lunges, running, rowing, whatever, but you're keeping the intensity extremely low.
Hmm.
And what that does is, you're getting um, a lot of blood flow, which is great for restorative work, like we're talking about. You're improving your hormones again because movement is like lotion for your body. And to me, if I take a day off, generally, like if and I sit on the couch all day, generally I wake up achy the next day,
Yeah.
and my knees hurt, my back hurts, my shoulders feel stiff. But when I move at a low rate of speed, I feel great the next day, and I'm ready to go with either intensity or maybe some weightlifting. So restorative work for me happens minimum once per week, usually twice per week.
Okay. Do you
Wednesdays
swim?
and I'm sorry, Wednesdays and Sundays. Yeah, I grew up swimming. So
Yes,
yeah,
sorry, I know you
yes.
grew up somewhere you know, but now as you get older, I find it a bit of a ball ache, even though a couple of the facilities where I train, you kind of got to make that extra bit of effort because it is like a bit of a longer session with the prep and the getting in and the getting out and the messing about. But I felt the difference in my shoulders because it's low
Oh
load
yeah.
and just for my range of movement and my mobility, it's been a real game changer. But I have to make a real effort for it because it's a ball ache.
Yeah. And again, you can use swimming as a restorative work, like you
Mm,
mentioned, for especially for like shoulders, hips, it
mm,
just lengthens the body a lot.
mm,
But again, you got to keep the intensity level low. And
mm.
swimming, most people are not good at, and they need more technique work than they do intensity.
Yes.
And as long as you remove that expectation of yourself of, getting a workout in the pool, I think it can be very beneficial.
Mm. So we finished second, 2012. Take us through those next
Mm,
few years, because your partner, Cherie, you guys, you met skiing, you got married, you started this gym together, you
yeah.
boosted it up past 300 members, then you're into it, but you kind of have to then apply that healthy selfishness and say, I'm kind of a bit of an ambassador for this and I've got to go for what I've got to go for. So you have to step away a little bit from it. What happened after 2012?
After 2012, the gym was doing great, and the notoriety I gained from being the runner up in 2012 boosted our numbers even higher. And Shri and I decided that it was time for us to take a break, get back to some things that, were activities that we, did when we fell in love with each other, specifically skiing, climbing, and mountain biking, and follow our hearts and get back into adventure for a period of time. And it's as goopy as it is, what it ended up turning out like is we moved into an Airstream travel trailer, which is a kind of like an old school.
Yeah, I know. Big steel boxes. They look great.
Yeah, exactly. And we traveled around the Western US for 12 months. And I still trained. I still, had an eye on training, but I was not nearly as dedicated to it as I was in 2012, because frankly, I was pretty beat up. After that 2012 season, I was really beat up. My knee, I had a meniscus injury. My ACL had some laxity in it, which was causing problems. I had some back problems. So we just took it down a notch and really enjoyed the outdoors a bit more and focused our efforts on our coaching with the CrossFit seminar staff.
How
We
did you get that
actually,
discipline though? Sorry, because most people would have just gone balls deep even further. They'd have just tried to throw more recovery, more chemicals, more whatever they could into the body because they're like, dude, I'm fucking second. I'm literally nearly there. I just need to be more dedicated. I just need to get rid of all of the rest of the stuff in my life. I need to be less of a good husband. I need to be less of a leader. I need to be more a recluse and just train.
I'll be honest with you, at that time, I was 35 years old, and I recognized that there wasn't another competitor, with the exception of Neil Maddox, who was my age or even in my, decade.
Yeah.
So when it came down to it, I had to be real with myself and just, prioritize my body a bit more because it was how I was making my livelihood,
Mm.
and just take it down a notch and be real with myself. I still took, I think, 18th in the 2013 CrossFit Games. Um,
Mate, I
but
admire you for that though. I'd have punched the throttle and gone snap. And I have done. I've done it
yeah,
3 times now, I think. The back,
and I have
leg,
as well.
pec. And I'm so shit at that. That's that self-awareness bit. And I still do it now with
Yeah.
businesses and stuff. I punch the throttle too much.
Well, and I made that mistake in 2014. So I mean, it is, a bit of immaturity. Even though I was 36 in 2013, I started experiencing more injuries. And in 2014, I really injured my back, and it just I had nerve pain down both legs. It was pretty debilitating all the time, and I just kept pushing. So it's I think, like you said, everybody makes some mistakes, and
Mm.
I look back on some of that stuff, and I feel like I could have been a lot smarter, and I probably wouldn't have some of the physical issues that I have now, but I
Mm.
wouldn't trade it for the world. I got to do exactly what I wanted to do.
Mm.
I took second place in the 2012 CrossFit Games, and honestly, that placement, like you said, you wanted to punch it and kind of finish
Yeah.
first. I was 100% fulfilled with second place. Some might call it the first place loser, but there's a small number of people who have stood on the podium at the
Mm.
CrossFit Games, and I can call myself one of them. So
Yeah.
I was really fulfilled with that, and
There's so
it
many
was time
aspects
for
of
me to
CrossFit
spend
where
some
some
time.
some of it's a gamble anyway, isn't it? Because you don't know what the sessions are, you don't know what the workouts are. There is, with the greatest of respect to you and everyone else that stepped on those podiums, and I never have, so feel free to tell me I haven't got a fucking clue. But it's like there will always be an element of look to what your physical predisposition is over the last couple of years and what areas you've trained in. Because even Rich himself, he's had a couple of fucking doozies on certain years where they're throwing something in that he's just not practiced, and that kind of happens to everyone a little
Yeah.
bit. It's not like we're all
I
practicing
think pre
sprinting, you know what I mean? And that's what we're all going to do.
I think the people you see in the CrossFit Games nowadays, for the most part, are uh, they're smarter than that. They're generally working on the things that they need to be better at.
Yeah.
And the people who are not, that are still making it to the CrossFit Games, they stand out like a sore thumb. And you can picture, a number of
Yeah.
people without me naming names, but
Yeah.
when you see somebody in a running event and they're, 240 pounds, you're like, this probably is not going to go well. Or on the female side, if there's a female that's 175 pounds
Yeah.
and she's, about to be faced with a big long run, she's probably not going to do that well. So
Mm.
the same is true if you got a 115-pound woman in a weightlifting event. It's just, probably there's a few people that are exceptions though. I mean, you look at Adams, what's her Haley Adams. I
Mm.
think she weighs maybe 135 pounds and she's
Crazy.
strong, she's fast, she's
Mm.
got a good mindset.
She's one of
So
those genetic
fun to watch.
unicorns. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy. I find it hard to watch it though sometimes without just thinking like, fucking hell, what that is really is just a physical unicorn. And I think we're sort of getting to the point now, not in a horrible way, but like it can almost discourage some people because they're like, I cannot understand how that person. And then it also like encourages people to think that the sport is heavily drug induced because I don't know anywhere enough about it. I only know from strongman and from bodybuilding and stuff like that, and that is very much a given. Everyone in there is injecting themselves twice a week. In your history in the sport and stuff like that, there have been people that have been flagged and ticked and things like that.
When I was competing, I don't think anyone got busted. Maybe not in 2008 through 2013. Definitely after that, people started popping.
Yeah,
I don't know who the first person was, but there was certainly, it started happening with more frequency. But, honestly, you could really tell the people that were,
yeah.
um, either on high levels of testosterone or growth hormone, because there's body characteristics that
Mm.
we all know that when you
Yeah,
look at somebody, you're like, yeah, that's
looking
not natural
juicy.
right there. Yeah, it's like the liver king, right? Like everybody fucking knows
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Come on, give
yeah.
me a break.
The traps and all that tend to be a dead giveaway. But talk to me for a second about performance enhancement. And I'm not just trying to go down a drug rabbit hole. Just like, when does that line get crossed? Because we're going so good and technical with our science and stuff these days. When people are looking at the nutrition, their supplementation, their lifting straps and wraps and all that sort of stuff. Do you see a point whereby we eventually just open up the floodgates and say to everybody, look, do whatever you like? Because also some people take away from the fact that certain people, Lance Armstrongs and stuff, have been popped for things in the past, but it doesn't mean they haven't trained, and dedicated their entire life to it. I think it's such a weird gray area because people get banned from wearing shark suits in swimming, and people get banned from doing certain performance enhancing clothing or whatever. But then when it comes into what people put in their body, people all of a sudden have a problem with it because they're like, oh, it's not fair anymore.
Well, here's why. When you start doing that, there's cheap drugs and there's expensive drugs,
Mhm.
and
Ah, yeah,
now it becomes an issue of who has the most money
yeah.
to support their supplementation. So I don't believe that it should be kind of free game on
Is
opening
there not
up the
aspects of that
floodgates.
even with physical rehab though? Because like ice baths, saunas, massages, this stuff is not cheap. So there's almost a barrier to entry for certain, and even just like certain nutrition and the volume of food and the. So I'm not trying to justify an excuse for it at all, but I'm like, there does come a point whereby can you put the time in because you've got to be a full time
Well,
professional athlete.
let me ask you this. You said you used some of that stuff previously. How much was a month's worth of testosterone supplementation and growth hormone
Testosterone and growth
supplementation?
hormone, I bet I was spending, so this is 10 years ago, £650 a month, probably. So it was very
So let me ask
expensive,
you this. How much is a gym membership that has an ice bath and a sauna?
significantly cheaper than that. And
Yeah,
you'd be
yeah.
looking
So
at
I mean,
£50 a week for a massage. And then, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely.
so I think there is I understand your point, but I do think that what you're going to find is that there's going to be these individuals who are very young, maybe let's just say 22. Look at somebody like Mal O'Brien, who
Mm,
clearly has all the talent in the world and has all the means in front of her to be a champion.
mm,
Imagine when she first started, she had nothing.
Mm.
And for her to be where she's at now, to get the notice that she has now, it took her, working hard on her own with just a pair of dumbbells and a barbell with some bumper plates to get better. And that's what's cool about sport, and specifically CrossFit, is that you can go into a dingy gym that has a pull-up bar, a barbell, and a couple bumper plates and create a hell of a lot of fitness.
But people haven't got that patience anymore. I feel like we're trained in a world of instant gratification now. If I want
Absolutely.
something, I haven't got to wait for it. I'll order it for Amazon. I get it now. I get it tomorrow. I get it in an hour. I can binge on Netflix. I can watch everything I want. I just have to pay for it. So then when you convert that into the body, this doesn't work that way. You've got to be patient. You've got to get used to those small marginal metrics of sort of development. And I feel like so many of us are not going to do that. They're not willing to put the time in. They see the CrossFit Games and they're like, yeah, I'm going to be there next year. And you're like, fucking whoa, maybe like 7 years, 8 years, even if, you do all of these things. I feel like we're not used to working as hard and being patient with stuff now.
Yeah, agreed. And the great part about that is that like you can get very fit in a short period of time using uh, the CrossFit methodology, in my opinion. Like, if you have an athletic background, and by athletic I mean everything from agility to power sports to strength sports, and also having an aerobic capacity. If you have a foundation of that stuff, you can transition very easily into CrossFit. It's just a matter of learning CrossFit techniques, pacing strategies, and how to put the whole scene together while addressing your strengths and weaknesses. And in a period of 2 to 3 years, you could become a CrossFit champion. And Rich Froning is a perfect example of that. Within his first couple of years of participating in the sport, he stood on the podium in second place in 2010. So, it just goes to show, like, Mal O'Brien is the opposite of that. Haley Adams is the opposite of that. Those two were CrossFit kids. They've been doing this stuff now for 10 years
Yeah.
as children, and now they're adults. And that's why you're seeing them at the top of the game. So the journey is very different for everybody. And it really depends on the person. I
Mm.
will say size and weight, though, certainly will provide an advantage in CrossFit. Just like, you see weightlifters, Olympic weightlifters with better anthropometric measurements that perform better. You're going to see the same thing with CrossFit now. You're not going to see the super tall guys win the CrossFit Games. You're not going to see the super, super short people win the CrossFit Games. You're going to see that kind of 5'7" to 5'10" at the most, 185 to 205 weight range for the men, probably do the best in the CrossFit Games. And
Really?
it's because it shortens the range of motion for most of the exercises, while still having the right limb length to do things like row, run, wall ball shots, and stuff like that effectively and quickly.
That's where it's getting into, isn't it? Having that advantage when you've got the right levers and stuff like that. I'm 6'5", and I always
Yeah.
thought I was way too tall for doing any of the strongman stuff, unless I could get myself. And I pushed it all the way to about 24 stone, but I still needed to be heavier to get that balance for strongman. And that's where you see people overeating and taking all these crazy drugs and all that sort of stuff. Take me to because we spoke a little bit about back injuries, challenges, setbacks there. 2014
Yeah.
was a fucking big shower of shit for you, with the greatest of respect. When I was looking back at the articles and what happened when you were out riding, that what really turned my stomach. But then to see your training now, because obviously I've just tried to catch up with all of your history, and then I see stuff happening these last couple of years versus where you were in 2014. That was another fork for me where I was like, are you going to become that guy who just says, "Oh yeah, I was fit once, and here's the thing where I was on the CrossFit Games, but then I had all these injuries, and now I'm a sack of shit"?
Well, I mean, that was never going to happen for me. Fitness has always been a part of my life from the age of 5 on. So I just it means too much to me, and I kind of equate it to like brushing my teeth. Like, I'm going to do it every day,
Yeah.
and some days I'll do it better than others, but I'm always going to do it. And exercise is the same.
Mm.
And I've made a lifestyle out of it. I have discipline with it. It's not easy. I'm not going to say that I want to do it every day, but I do it.
Mm.
Um, but in 2014, yeah, basically I overdid it early in the year. I really had some major back problems in February, and I was ramping everything back up to be healthy, and it was going really, really well. And then on the 4th of July in 2014, I took a fall on my mountain bike with my wife, celebrating the Independence Day holiday here in the United States, and I crushed an artery in my leg that caused some serious, serious damage in my legs. So, you know, it was a bummer at the time. It still is kind of a bummer, obviously, but I don't have the same circulation that I did. I've got some nerve damage in my right leg.
Did you know how bad it was when you first did it? Because when you came off up there, Sharia had to go and get help for it. You had to be helicoptered out,
Yeah,
right?
I did. Yeah, it was very severe. It was, 100% life threatening. If the skin had opened, I would be dead, for sure. But the skin stayed closed, and the medical thing that happened was called a self tamponade. Basically, there was so much pressure under the skin that it, you know, uh, collapsed the artery that was crushed, and therefore I had no more blood flow into the leg. But I lost all pulses in my lower leg and in my foot for a period of almost 45 minutes. And I had to have 3 fasciotomies to control the compartment syndrome afterwards.
Yeah.
I had to
So
use a
that's where they
walker
slice the
for
leg at different places to basically bleed out the pressure, isn't it? Compartment syndrome is
that's
nasty
exactly
as
right.
hell. And you get a lot of muscle
It
wastage
it
from it as
base
well.
I did. It was actually kind of strange. So, they perform those fasciotomies, two on the lower leg, one on the upper leg. And what happens is it allows your muscle and your tissues to swell, which was what caused the loss of pulses in my foot. Um, and that way you get more circulation back to the feet, even though there's now that there's less pressure. But because of that, they cut all the fascia on all those spots. So I have about I'd say a 16 to 18 inch scar on my upper leg where they open the skin and open the fascia that still has no fascia, almost 10 years
Wow.
later. And what fascia does is it compresses the muscle, and a compressed muscle is a stronger muscle. So right away, I lost a lot of strength on that leg. And as you can imagine, now I start compensating off that weaker leg onto my stronger leg. And I run into knee problems. And then because of the torque that's happening, I have back problems.
Yeah.
So the writing was on the wall for me that, I probably was not going to be able to do this any longer, as far as competitive sports is concerned. But I did reluctantly give it one more shot in
Fucking hell.
2015. Yeah, 2015, and I took ninth place in the 2015 regional that I was a part of.
That's
So
a
I was
really
four
fast
spots out of.
comeback. That's a really fast comeback.
Yeah.
There must have been a couple of
I,
months there where you're learning to walk again, you develop an issue in the other knee because you're compensating. How
oh
did you
fuck! I had to
fight
walk with
off
a
depression
cane.
and drive and just being
I
able to
didn't, man.
okay.
I didn't. No, I got pissed and I started working hard again. That's honestly how it went. I just, I had a teary moment in the gym when I was just doing bicep curls with Sheree, and I was just like, fuck, I'm never gonna be the same. This is fucking bullshit.
Hmm.
And she's like, well, not with that attitude. And it's just like, huh,
Oh
yeah,
man.
fuck this. I'm
So
gonna do it.
lucky
Here we
to be
go.
around somebody like that. But you had to
Yeah.
step so
So
far back. You had to start with such fundamental, rudimentary. Like I had this last year, and I just felt like learning to walk downstairs again when I snapped my right patella tendon, and just
yeah.
just such basic movements, and just feeling the whole time like I'm never gonna get back. I'm never gonna get back. And even now, I'm a long way ahead of it, but still got so much swelling and bone bruising around the knee, and I can't close it properly, and it's still like but I have to. It's so hard because you forget where you've come from. I forget what it was
Yeah.
like now. Even like 5 months ago, I'm forgetting how bad it was, and I've gotten used to it. And now I'm like, oh, it still feels
Here,
like the new shit. You know what I mean?
well, here's how you fix that scenario. So this worked for me. And what you just described, where it's like you look back where you came from,
Mm.
something that can be very beneficial in trying times like that is goal setting.
Mm.
And that's something I've always been good at.
Sorry, yeah, take us there because you've got a great system for that. Sorry.
Yeah, goal setting to me is absolutely essential to every athlete. And when I say athlete, I'm not talking about professional athletes. I'm talking about people who take fitness, health and fitness seriously, because when you set goals, you reach goals. Even if you don't fucking, if you shoot for the stars, you're still going to hit space, right?
Mm.
And there's going to be progress.
Yeah.
And that's what goal setting does. Whereas if I just hope and pray that I'm going to get better at something and I don't have any unit of measurement to whether or not I'm improving, I may not be improving.
Mm.
And it'll make you scatterbrain. It'll make you question whether or not you're working hard enough or working on the right things. And then, of course, you start running into injuries again. So for me, goal setting is kind of step number one in times of trying times like this. Like, for example, my back has been bugging me pretty badly, and I went and had an MRI done, and I've got two herniated discs that are impinging on some nerves, and it's something I've dealt with in the past. I know what I need to do. April 5th, I'm going in for a procedure which just involves putting some platelets into the disc, and I've got to back off for a while. But I know over 12 weeks, I can ramp it back up to where I'm at right now. It's just, I have to start really slow.
Mm.
I can't have any expectations of being who I am right now for those first bunch of weeks. But at the end, at 12 weeks, I know that I can pretty much do what I'm doing right now.
That is difficult though, and especially for like people in different parts of the world, because I don't think we have access to that sort of stuff here. But again, you got to put yourself out there. You've got to invest in yourself. You've got to have that self accountability of, how long do I want to be able to do this for? And you're gonna have to take that tactical pause and almost take one step back to take two steps forward again, I suppose.
Well, that's even more important, like with where I'm at right now, and probably most firefighters that are listening to this,
Mm.
they're like, I don't give a shit about the CrossFit Games. I don't give a shit about competitive anything. I just
Yeah.
want to fucking feel good and not feel broken and know that I can do my job without dying.
Mm.
And that in itself is like a major accomplishment, coming to that realization that you know I'm not going to sit on my ass and wait for fitness to just magically happen.
Mm.
I'm just going to go in the gym and I'm going to start with 20 push-ups, you know 30 air squats and a few sit-ups. I'm just going to start there. And I look at fitness now as a longevity game. How do I extend where I'm at right now out as far as I possibly can? I
Yes.
know it's going to decline. I know 100% it's going to decline. It already has declined. But what's great is, even as I was declining in my fitness, I still won the fucking Titan Games, which
Mm.
was a cool little
That was
side
fucking crazy
hustle
going
that
on
I
there
did.
with Dwayne Johnson. Talk me through that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, again, it was one of those things where it was like I'm sitting on my ass feeling sorry for myself, having nothing to train for. And I was watching the Titan Games on TV, and I saw a female uh, that I knew as a CrossFitter on the first season. And at the end of the show, they said, if you'd like to be a contestant on season 2 of the Titan Games, submit a video at NBC.com. I went on NBC, looked at the requirements, recorded a silly little video of me and my dog sitting on the couch talking a little bit. And about 8 months later, I found myself in the casting net of NBC for this show. And the point is, though, that there were some fucking fit people on that thing. There was some
Yeah.
very very strong people, some very, like, God, I mean, just fit people,
Yeah.
and much younger than I am. And what was cool about that is I had the mindset that I was going to win it. And Joe Thomas almost got me, but for the most part, I did my thing. And it just showed to me personally that what I set my mind to, and if I train smart and not for, competition, I can still be very fit. And that's what that kind of resonated with to me. And I hope it does with other people.
Mm. Talk to me for a second about your shoulder rehab last year, because, like I said, with my shoulder, and I know shoulders and backs are a big challenge for people. What was going on for you, and kind of how did you overcome it? Because I tore my rotator cuff many years ago, and I had to start getting into lots of prehab work, and there's kind of like a little routine I do for any kind of upper body stuff now. But what was it with your shoulders? How did you overcome it?
Well, first of all, it was bugging me over time. It just felt weaker at first, and then it started feeling painful. Specific movements, like I could do an overhead squat, wide grip squat with the bar overhead, and have no pain. But it was a transition from that pull to the overhead position. So whether that was a upright row or whether it was a power snatch or a hang snatch, that caused a shit ton of pain where it was like something's wrong. So I just went in, I had MRI done, and I again had platelets injected with some stem cells into my shoulder joint, specifically the rotator cuff,
Hmm.
and gave it time. And it hurt a lot more than it did going into the procedure. But 12 weeks later, I was good to go. I could do pull-ups, and I slowly worked my way back into things like kipping and muscle ups and bar dips and ring dips, and even the movements that cause pain before. I'm still very reluctant to do those heavy, but I do them and think about the position of my shoulder as I'm performing them. And I'd say I'm like 90% now, 95%. I still occasionally feel pain, but instead of push past the pain, I stop there and I give it some time to rest. And that
We've
really helps.
spoken a
And
few
I've also
times,
just,
sorry, about stem cells, stem cell
yeah,
treatment. Why did you first start doing that? What's the benefits of it? Because I'm hearing it more and more these days, and I'm giving it more and more
yeah,
consideration. What is it, and how is it
yes.
different from other stuff?
Well, I got introduced to it from a doctor, a chiropractic doctor here in the United States, um, because he was treating me. He was making my back feel better by not only just adjusting me, but also he would do some dry needling, some cupping, some Graston techniques, and he was basically my sports therapist.
Mm,
And he took care of my body for 10 years, over 10 years.
okay.
Shout out to Jason Gridley. But he recommended at one point, because we did do an MRI on my back, that I had bulging discs and some stenosis that was causing nerve pain. And he said, I know these guys, these doctors that do this stem cell and platelet therapy, that's up near where you work. Why don't you go talk to them, get a consultation, see what you think? So I did. And I decided to give that a go, because what it allows you to do is keep all of your body's materials intact.
Okay.
And in fact, rebuild some of those materials. So for me, it was a torn meniscus in my knee, and it was herniated discs uh, in my lumbar spine. And what they did was, they draw your own stem cells, they draw your own blood. You go in, and they describe it as the stem cells are the contractors on a construction site.
Okay.
The platelets are the materials that the contractors need to do their job.
Okay.
So they basically, like, under X-ray guided injections, they layer in the stem cells into the injury sites like you would with a tube of toothpaste. So it's very, very precise. And then they go back in a day later or 2 days later, and they do the platelets over that. And over the course of 18 months, you just continue to improve.
Wow.
So, yeah, I've been doing that now for the first year was 2012 after the CrossFit Games, and
Jesus.
I'm going back April 5th. So I mean, it's been over 10 years of doing it. So
Do you do it every year?
I do it twice a year. Yeah.
Twice a year. See, man, that is got to be
Yeah.
a fucking game changer. This is the sort of thing where you're still going to be doing shit into your late 50s, and the rest of us will start
Well,
dropping off.
and that's a great point. So I know for a fact that I'm going to need a knee replacement on my right knee. I know it. The doctors there even tell me. But what the deal is, I'm delaying that from happening. Most knees, like artificial knees, are 30-year knees now.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at it like, okay, I really probably won't live past 85, I'm guessing. I take care of myself, but I've really put a lot of stress on my heart. So I'm guessing that 85-year kind of mark is
You think
probably
that,
it for
really?
me. I do. I mean, I don't know. You know the data as well as I do about firefighters. I mean,
Yeah, I
generally our
know
lifespan
something's
is,
gonna bite us. I've rolled the dice way too much. I'm not saying I'm not disagreeing with you, but I think you'll live longer than me because you've been smarter and you've invested more in your body. I've not invested in the same way. I've tried to get more tactical and train smarter, but for a million reasons, I'll probably use as excuses from the UK. But it's like I've either not invested in it or I've not put myself in a good financial position to invest in that rehabilitative work. But maybe I need to. I'm
yeah,
still in my early 30s, but I've got to make it a
yeah,
fucking
plenty of time.
priority.
But it's like your retirement, like you got to start putting shit away now.
Yeah.
It's it's like fitness.
I think we're better at
People
that
who
though.
think
We're
they're
like
going to
more
get fit.
conditioned to that. We do put money away, but then we don't think about, am I going to be able to physically enjoy my retirement? And I see most people retiring financially in a position where they can do stuff, but physically where they can't.
Yeah, that's exactly why I'm focusing on longevity. I mean, I love the job. I love being a firefighter. I love, breaking shit and fucking tearing shit up and
Yeah.
being a hero from time to time. But I also know that I'm doing this as an end, a means to an end.
Mm.
I want to have a great retirement with my wife and my dogs, where we're skiing, mountain biking, climbing, and having fun, like a couple old people fucking around in the mountains. Like
Yeah.
that's my deal. And I know that, by doing this, like the stem cell stuff, I'm delaying the time, basically, that I would need to potentially have to do two knee replacements. I'm
Mm.
going to cut it down to just that one and get a single 30-year knee. I figured out, I've stayed with the times, and I've tried, peptides and stuff like that now. And there's so many tools available to aging adults or athletes
Mm.
that, a lot of them are against the rules for competition.
Mm.
And you got to be aware of that. But for me, I'm not competing in anything other than life.
Mm.
And, I'm going to use what it takes to make me feel good, and watch my health markers move in the right direction.
Mm. So take us there for a minute because we were talking before we came on. There's a few different aspects around using different products, different chemicals, and stuff like that. Certainly, when we talked about PTSD before we came on, some of the sort of resources or things that people could utilize to live a healthier, more sort of beneficial life have really changed in the States. You guys just legalized use of certain things for PTSD as well, didn't you?
Yeah, that's right. When we say you guys, I know there's a number of states. I'm sure you guys are aware. Like, the United States has legalized recreational marijuana almost
Mm.
entirely. I think there's like six holdout states now out of 50 that have 100% legalized marijuana.
Mm.
And because I think that opened the door for a lot of stuff here in the States, because they saw there really wasn't any increase in violent crime due to
Yeah, I agree. I don't think
legalization.
it's the same as so many other class A drugs, or I know you guys sort of factor them or categorize them different to what we do, but they're not the same as, heroin and stuff like that. It's a totally different sphere of chemical.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then, now Colorado, the state where I live, they have enacted a measure which is not taken place yet, but it was approved by the voters, to become law in 2024, where first responders and military will have access to psychedelics to treat PTSD. And
That's
you know,
huge.
I they don't have the law in place yet, so I don't know exactly what they look like. That looks like, but in Denver alone, the city that I live in, um, it is now decriminalized to have psilocybin in your house, for your own use.
Mm.
So, I've found personally that the use of psilocybin for PTSD has changed my life 100%. I
Really?
am so much healthier mentally than I've ever been in my entire life. And it's because of all these benefits that are being studied now, at Johns Hopkins University, related to the neuroplasticity benefits in the brain
Mm.
of changing the way you think on a daily basis. And it's long standing. We're seeing, they're seeing a decrease in depression, long-term
Mm.
depression. They're seeing all sorts of benefits to overall happiness. So, I'd say for myself, like, I'm really excited with where my state in particular is going with treatment of PTSD using plant-based medicine, which would, I think, from what I understand, is going to include not only psilocybin, but DMT,
Hmm.
ibogaine, and a number of other medicinals.
Mm.
And I think it's going to be absolutely amazing for firefighters in particular, because I've seen it with the guys I work with, that they need it. They
How
need
has
it.
it
It's
changed the
it's
way that you process things then, and how often you utilize, a method such as that to be able to help you, sustain that mental sort of clarity?
Yeah. So, psilocybin's very intimidating, because you lose control, right?
Mm.
You lose control of your mind a bit, um, even though you're completely aware of what's happening, and you're not seeing any sort of visual changes or anything like that.
Mhm.
What it does is it reaches its fingers into your mind and stirs the pot a bit. That's how I feel like it does. And it's like a fresh coat of snow on a ski slope, right?
Okay.
Um, Whereas a ski slope might have all these bumps and rutted out areas that you kind of are forced to ski because so many people have skied it there before.
Mm.
That's how your brain is too. We've become efficient in the way that we think and we
Yeah.
protect ourselves and we
Hmm.
all of those things. We're in a fucking routine that you
Yeah.
just can't break.
Yeah.
Well, this psilocybin is like a blanket of snow over all those bumps where you can just go wherever you want. And that can be both scary
Mm.
and it can be really, really
I know what
beneficial
you're saying though,
because
because when you start getting into a thought pattern and you don't like where you're going, but you almost I remember
you
someone
can't
saying
help it.
trying to think your way out of a thinking problem is like trying to sniff your way out of a cocaine problem because the more you think about, no, I don't want to go there, and I can see the way I'm going and I can see this feeling, this cloud start descending upon me. But you kind of trying to mentally hit that reset button every time and get out of that rut and get out of that pathway that you're in. But the fucking mind just starts going down there and you can't seem to get out of that groove. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And the biggest benefit that I've seen is related to my own ego. And I think a lot of firefighters are in a similar position that I am, where it's like ego directs a lot of what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Most of us are alphas, and to get where we're at, we've really had to kind of force our way into things,
Yeah.
and it's difficult because if you're at a fire station where you're now the low man on the totem pole, but you feel like you should be somebody already,
Yeah.
whether you've got some previous experience, that's your ego speaking.
Mm-hmm.
And people generally have a very difficult time, and I can only speak for myself, but I generally have a very difficult time accepting that I'm not the expert in the room.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
100%.
after the use of some psilocybin in a controlled environment, it really opens your mind to what you don't know, and you look at things from a different perspective that you've never seen before.
Mm.
And it doesn't last forever for me. Every 4 months, 3, 4 months, kind of got to do it again.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I try to time it appropriately with work so that there's no effects at work or anything like
Yeah.
that. And it's been phenomenal.
Well, I hope that we start utilizing stuff like that more globally, or at least are open to the solutions like that, because trauma and mental health challenges in the first responder community is only growing, and it's something that we don't seem to have
Yeah.
a solution for, and we just try to talk our way out of it. But if we were more open to different variations of treatment and stuff like that, certainly think a lot of people will benefit from it, especially from the military as well.
Oh, absolutely. Both. Yeah. All the above. First responders too. All of them. The difficult part that I see with people I know is that it's very difficult for them to relinquish that control because they're
Mhm.
afraid what's going to come out, and
Yes.
that is a very real fear, and it should be not blown off. It should
Mhm.
be really considered because when you do have this experience, your mind is going to go everywhere you don't want it to go,
Mhm.
and that could be some very deep rooted things that you've been putting off thinking about and processing. When you're on a mind altering drug like that, it just comes to the surface.
But the irony is, until we start to legalize that and we allow facilities to have sitters and safe spaces where people can experience this, the only way to experience it otherwise is to enter the underworld and to enter doing it illegally, and that is a scary place because people that tend to hang around that sort of society are people with, we assume, poor morals and poor values, and that only perpetuates this idea that it's very unsafe for us to do it. But if you put it in a medical environment and you have provisions around it and it was legislated and the stuff was tested, then it would be significantly safer for people to do. So it's a little bit like a chicken and egg scenario. You almost need to commit to it and allow people to do it in a safe space before you can really see the true benefits.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. I don't know if it's necessarily the underbelly that you describe, because many of the people that use mushrooms, this is not one of those drugs that is something
Yeah,
you're going to want to
true.
do over and over again.
Mm.
These are you. Most people that are doing mushrooms are very in touch with themselves,
Mm.
um, and are deep thinkers, or at least they're not looking to get high.
Yeah.
In my experience, the people that are doing mushrooms are not looking to get high. What they're looking to do is do some self improvement, in a way that they deem is safe. And I'll tell you this much, having done therapy, um, yeah, no disrespect to therapists or what they do, because it can be very effective for a lot of people. But the changes that you can make in a shorter duration of time with the use of classic psychedelics, to me, have been much more efficacious than therapy itself.
Mm.
And the one thing that's true about both therapy and these therapeutics like psychedelics is that you still have to do the hard work afterwards. Like,
Mm.
just because you have an epiphany that you need to improve this and this while you're on mushrooms, you still got to fucking go out there and do that hard
Yeah.
work. It's not just going to happen for you.
I love that.
You don't take mushrooms and then all of a sudden become a better person.
No, 100%. It more just helps you get out of your own way, or like rub the fog off the mirror so you can truly see what is the work that you do need to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
agree
yeah,
about that. I wanted to, for a
yeah.
second, just reference the fact that you do still help a lot of people professionally with some of the challenges, and just hearing some of the authenticity from some of the serious challenges you've gone through there, speaking to people that are of similar age than you, other than some of the medical intervention that they can make. I think we'd be doing a disservice to actually some of the other life habits that you do. So from all of your experiences, people working with you professionally in the gyms and stuff like that, what's some of the more low hanging fruit? Perhaps people don't have aspirations to reach second place in the CrossFit Games. They just do share the aspect with yourself, though, where they want to keep having a fit and healthy life into their 70s. Is there any kind of low hanging fruit other than the complexity of some of the stuff we've spoken about there that you work with clients and stuff that they could adopt, that they could start doing those first steps? We're talking about step 74 and some of the complexity there. What's the steps one, two,
Fuck
three
yeah.
that people could start doing?
Oh, man, I think the number one thing that people can do is move. And it doesn't mean you have to do high intensity exercise. It doesn't mean you have to go running. It doesn't mean you have to go mountain biking. Literally, you can go for 30 minutes of walking a day, and that's the catalyst for changing your life right there. And the more you move, the more you metabolize, the more you refine, the more you fight off dementia. All of those benefits from just simple movement like walking. There's a reason why these blue zones, they talk about what's the commonalities between them. One of them is just movement and
Mm.
walking. These Most of these centurions, I think is how you say it, are involved in long duration walks every day. Hey, let's learn something there. Like,
Yeah.
you don't have to go, you don't go have to hit a gym. You don't have to do the sauna if you don't want to.
Mm.
Literally just go for a walk with your significant other or your dog 2-3 times a day after a meal. And I promise that is low hanging fruit that everybody can do. And you can't make an excuse against that. No fucking way. Another one is that, once you start to see some improvements in your confidence with movement, is starting to eat adequate protein. I think is something that every individual should do. Now, there's science out there that says that protein can cause cancer in high amounts and all that. So you make up your own decision. But for me personally, I think that every time I try to eat 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, I generally end up feeling and looking better.
Mm.
The more other bullshit I start to add in there, that's where I start to run into some problems. But the main part of my meals has always been the starting point is the protein,
Mm.
whether that's Greek yogurt, whether that's a elk steak, whether that's eggs. I always start with the protein and then I fill in with the rest.
Do you have any sugar
I
at
think.
all? Because I started cutting sugar out
Oh, fuck
about
yeah.
3 years ago, but it's
Oh,
yeah. But do you have like proper sugar? Because I have honey. I have honey on a lot of my yogurt and fruit and stuff in the evening,
oh.
which sometimes tends to spike me a little bit. Actually, I don't sleep as well sometimes after that. But we don't have any fucking sugar in the house anymore at all. And we realized it when we went to do some
Hmm.
baking about 4 weeks ago that we had to go out and buy some. But I feel
Oh,
like sugar's got a whole bad rap, and people understanding what is natural and unnatural sugar. I don't want to go too much down the dietary rabbit hole because I know it's a fucking world in itself. But
it really is. And the answer with the dietary stuff is that there's no one answer for
no,
everybody, just like
no.
there's not with exercise. But I will say that, I think refined sugar is generally something that you could easily say stay away from.
Mhm.
And you're going to see improvements in your body composition and your general longevity and lifestyle.
Mm.
But does that mean that carbohydrates should be avoided? Absolutely not.
No. Yeah.
Some people thrive on moderate to high levels of carbohydrate. Other people thrive on moderate to high levels of fat. So it's figuring out what works for you with that stuff. But as far as sugar itself, I do not eat sugar daily. I do absolutely enjoy the occasional cheat meal for sure. Like, something that we do every so often at the fire station is cereal Saturdays, and we all bring in our favorite box of cereal. So
Have you
we have a
tried
smorgasbord of.
what's the one that Tim Ferriss always talks about? There's a fucking we don't get it in the UK here, but I've been really hoping. Oh, Magic Spoon.
Oh, no, that's the high protein one. No, I haven't tried it.
Yeah, I've
I
not
eat
got
total
there yet. I
bullshit.
keep telling myself I want to order some because it looks fucking really nice and they do some amazing flavors, but cereal just doesn't form part of my I just don't have cereal ever, but I miss it. I do miss
Yeah.
it. And part of me is like, I'd love to get
Yeah,
but then
that's
again, I don't know if
that's
I'm
when we
opening
have it.
up the Pandora's box and then I'd fucking start eating all this shit cereals and stuff like that. But yeah, man, cereal Saturday sounds like a fucking win.
Here's the biggest one I think, and this is those other two I feel like are pretty easy to achieve for most people.
Yeah.
Walking and also getting enough protein. This third one, everybody's going to balk at, and that's reduce or eliminate alcohol consumption.
Yes.
Alcohol, I love that people are dogmatic about drug use and how bad it is for society and how terrible it is for your health and how it's addictive. Yet those same people have a drink every fucking night.
Mate, honestly,
To
you're
me,
fucking speaking to the choir. I cannot. It must have been. Imagine being around the meeting table when they first came up with alcohol, because it's scientifically proven, and people have arguments about red wine and how there's some antioxidants in that and shit. But for the vast part, we know it is fucking killing cells. But it's so embedded in our culture globally. It's just like, oh no, this is the.
totally.
And I say to people, oh, do you ever use drugs? And they're like, no, no, use drugs. But you fucking drink alcohol. And I'm like, they're like, they don't see it as a drug. But sorry, I interrupted you. But like, this one just fucking baffles my mind.
No, no, you're absolutely right. And, especially for, longevity, I mean, there's so many disease processes caused by alcohol alone that, you know, yeah, I could get on a soapbox about this, but
I
it's like,
mean, get on that
people,
box.
people that talk a lot of shit about doing drugs, like what we described earlier, using psilocybin for mental health,
Hmm.
are the same people that will fucking call you a drug user
Yeah.
that drink alcohol. And it's mind numbing to me. But, you know, back in the day, a lot of the guys at the gym, a lot of the people at the gym would ask questions about like, well, wait a minute, I'm doing the same shit you are. Why are you, why do you look like you look? And why are you able to do what you do? And I'm not able to do the same stuff. And yeah, there's a genetic component to it. Yeah, there's a deep practice component to it. There's a time under tension component to it. But then there's this one big fucking thing that's kind of the
Hmm.
blockade, and it's alcohol use
Hmm.
because it interrupts your sleep. It can give you diseases like fatty liver disease. It can cause diabetes. It can lead you down a path of heart disease. It is definitely a major source of obesity in the United
Yeah.
States. There's so many elements to alcohol use that I would consider almost any other drug a better choice than it.
Mm. Also, we're not even getting into the societal cost. Like I say, if you and I stayed home and just smoked a load of marijuana, we might get giggly, we might eat some shit, and then we might fall asleep. If we go and drink a load, we're going to go out, we might abuse our partners, we might smash up the town, and the societal cost to it as well is just colossal. But even if we just take all of that aside, I always say to people, like, you're voluntarily carrying around a fucking kettlebell. You're not giving yourself a chance. You're not even starting on the same start line because you're insisting on carrying this thing along the journey. And then you keep moaning why it's so much
Yep.
harder for somebody else. I know, despite all the setbacks and physical challenges for me, I just feel so lucky that I stopped drinking when I was like 20, when I started to do certain things with my sports. And I just seem to grow away from that social circle. And I feel so blessed for that. It was just blind luck that it fell out of my social routine. And now we're 14 years
Well, and
deep, and the
there's
people that I live with who have been drinking all that time, and it's like they're carrying a kettlebell. They've been carrying it forever.
well that therein lies the problem is that and enough bashing on the people that use alcohol. Like I think the problem is that at a certain point in time the use of alcohol no longer becomes something that's recreational per se. It's something that settles you down at the end of the day.
Yes.
It's something that you have with a meal. It's something that you do socially,
It gets its
and
hooks
it
into all
is
of your social structure.
right. And it's very difficult to just go out for a night and not have a beer, not
Mm.
have a drink, not have a glass of wine. And I completely understand that. So, I think the first step in reshaping your thought process about alcohol is maybe don't do it at home
Mm.
and keep it out of the house and reserve it for like my fucking cereal Saturdays. Like,
Yeah.
it's a go and have fun sort of thing and
Mm.
use it in moderation and and feel what the consequences are when you have some sobriety, like some true sobriety. I'm not talking about getting drunk. What I'm talking about is like really drying out your system
Mm.
and then reintroducing.
Mm.
And generally, people, they're shocked by how they feel after an evening of just even a few drinks. I know I am.
Even just a week, I tell people like if you drink 4 liters of water a day for a week and just stop drinking alcohol, if you can go that 7 or 8 days, and I'm not talking about an alcoholic, I'm just talking about someone that recreationally drinks every other night or something like that, you will feel such a colossal change in your cognitive ability, in your sleep, just how your body feels, how your skin feels, your hair, everything. As fucking wanky as that stuff might sound, it's such a game changer, such a game changer.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Dude, we've gone in so many fucking directions there. I've got a whole list of stuff in front of me, and I feel like we've covered all of them in such a fantastic way. I know we were going to talk about ice barrel use and so many other things, but also I don't want to leave people without a place to go to try and find out a little bit more about this because you are huge on social media and stuff like that. For people that have learned a little bit about this and want to maybe get a little bit more, I know we spoke about the goal setting ebook. Where's the best place for people to go to try and connect with you or reach out to you or find out a bit more?
Yeah, I struggle with the social media stuff. I don't love doing it, and I know it's a way to connect with people though, and that is the way that you can connect with
I
me
love seeing your
is
dog. I love
through.
seeing you and your dog. I think before we came on tonight, you've invested in a Jacob's ladder or
Yeah,
something, haven't you? That's a great bit of kit.
I did. Yeah, I just got one of those.
Fuck,
Yep,
that's
yep,
cool. You've got a great setup. Is that your
yep.
private unit, or is that where you still train with people? Or
That is my garage. That is my garage. Yep, we built that. What you see in photos and in videos. Yeah, that's just my garage. That's where the car is supposed to go. So, but yeah, if you want to, if anyone wants to get a hold of me and really, request more information about anything, or see some social content on anything in particular, you can catch me on on Instagram at Matt1Chan, Matt the number one Chan. But we also have exercise program called Train for the Win, which is at train_FTW. We have what I consider the best longevity program on the market for people who enjoy not only a little bit of CrossFit, we do like generally like 2 to 3 days a week of traditional style of CrossFit, but also weight training, bodybuilding is daily, and then some real traditional aerobic conditioning work. Um, and we do a 7 day free trial. So love to see people get on that. We got a great community out there. I communicate with people on that app all the time, and it's probably the most consistent I am on any sort of app or platform. So
that's where people get the
come
benefit
join
from it
me
as
there.
well. That's where people get the genuine benefit.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's a lovely insert for people that want to make those changes in their life, but they feel like they don't want to go to level 10. This, especially with the aspect and the focus around longevity, which is a lot of what we've spoken about there. And there's a colossal amount of authenticity in it as well, where you've made those adaptations. It's not like, with the greatest of respect, you're not a 22-year-old preaching at people about longevity. The difference here is you've actually had to go through it and you've had the setbacks and you've had the injuries. And I feel like people can really connect with that, especially for
Yeah.
myself. I've had all those injuries, and you're a little bit of that guy on the other side of the river saying, no, you need to go around the left and you just need to do this. And then people can see that there is an ability for them to continue doing what they're doing into their 40s and their 50s.
That's a great point. Like, yeah, follow me on my journey. Like, this Train for the Win program is exactly the program I do every fucking day, with the exception of when I get out and go skiing and mountain biking and all that stuff. I take days off that whatever, but this is my program. This is what I do. This is what my wife does. And it is 100% the direction that I think if you're shooting for longevity, this is the way you should go. And It changes. I query my group every 3 months and ask them, what do we want as a new goal? And they shoot me some ideas. Like right now, we're working on a bench press, shoulder press, linear progression method program, 1 day per week. And we're coming towards the end of it. So it's about time to query them again. What are we going to do for the next program? And it's pretty outstanding. I'm honestly, like, and if you're interested in checking it out, go to trainftw.com and just sign up for the 7-day free trial. It's, cancel anytime. We'll refund. If you try for a month and you hated it, we'll refund your money. But
Helpful.
I'm sure you're going to love it. So
I'm sure
yeah.
they'll love it.
And then YouTube is something we do too, with that same handle, that Train FTW handle. So there's a million different videos on there about how to perform movements, but also kind of tips and tricks on how to do things too. So
I found the
love
tutorials
connecting
on
with
there
people
really
on
nice.
the comments.
We've got some really well put
Thank you.
together short tutorials, which actually kind of debunk some of the complexities, because you see some people just getting after it and it looks like a fucking whirlwind of complexity. But you and Cherie have really broken down some really good tutorials on there. So I love that. We'll put all those links in the notes for this. We've gone for like an hour and 40 minutes there, mate, with no break, which I absolutely love.
Yeah.
I'm going to be
Yep.
so respectful of your time. I'm going to go put my children to bed as well, actually. But please send my love to Cherie.
Oh, yeah, it's late.
Everybody at the department, mate, thank you so much for making time for this. I know we've tried for ages and you could have so easily just fucked it off. So I feel, that's another reflection of your values and stuff like that. We're a world apart and I'd have never known and I've never had a chance to get back in contact with you. So putting in that time and putting this time aside today, I really appreciate that, mate. I really respect you for it. Thank you.
Anytime, Pete, man. It was great talking to you. Thanks so much for having me on.
Firefighters podcast is put together to develop, inspire, and hopefully even motivate those individuals who have chosen to serve our communities and be part of the first responder family. It's brought to you by myself, operational firefighter Pete Wakefield. If you have enjoyed today's episode and you want to see the podcast continuing, please head over to our Patreon page where you can support the ongoing efforts of the podcast. Please hit that follow, subscribe, or rate button on whatever platform you're listening to. Please support your emergency services responders, and thank you for listening.